So for the Grand Slam at Saratoga, it's races 8 through 11. It's a four-horse sequence, and we do have two stakes races within it. And this looks like a pretty compelling sequence and a pretty tough one, I might add. Leg 1 is the 8th race. It's a maiden special weight for 100,000, run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And as we know, 7 furlongs is an awful tricky distance, and particularly amongst maidens. We take a look at this field, and it is an interesting field in that it seems to be pretty well balanced. I don't see whether there's really any standout in this field, and which might make it a little on the tricky side. And certainly the quest for value becomes a little deeper when you consider that. I've landed on Point Clear. Point Clear in his debut broke terribly and was spotted the field quite a bit, and he still was yet able to rally very strongly to get a very good second. So I'm presuming that with a better break, now on the inside, should be able to break cleanly or break well. I'm assuming on the second start they've corrected that. And if so, I think this horse showed a lot of talent to get up for second and a lot of fight. Didn't just throw in the towel right away. So at 5-1, I think you're getting a pretty good price with Point Clear. Hurricane Nelson is the chalk here at 3-1. It hasn't been seen for quite some time, but prior to that, had some pretty good efforts. But one thing is, he was favored in just about every race he ran and never seemed to be able to close the deal. And you know, after one race, a beaten favorite, okay, but once you start making a habit of it, then you wonder if this horse is just going to become a career maiden who's really good but just can't get the deal done until he drops down into like maiden claimer and he has no choice but to win. So there's some concerns with Hurricane Nelson. He can clearly win this race. There's no doubt about it. Just have some big question marks with regards to that, particularly coming back at a tricky distance like 7 furlongs, even though he has run on it before. So certainly Hurricane Nelson is one that you would want to have in your mix. Upstanding is pretty logical. Todd Pletcher, Rapoli Stables, Rod Ortiz. We all know what Todd Pletcher can do with firsters. More so with the 2-year-olds, I would note, than with the 3-year-olds. But still, very logical. The tab looks solid. And I think he's one you definitely have to keep in the mix for sure. A couple others to take note of. Frostel, first effort on turf was a horse who was very keen early on and then faded. And moving to dirt in the second start wouldn't necessarily be really exciting, except for the fact if you look at the work tab, this one's last work was first out of 186, I think. That has to mean something. This horse clearly demonstrated some speed early on, and excuse me, the real question, of course, will be if he's learned to marshal it in his time off. But I think that work tab, you have to include this horse. This is a race that I think really is screaming for value, particularly with Hurricane Nelson as the favorite. And so I think you could do a lot worse by thinking about Frostel at 30-1. He could very well get on the lead and be gone. It's that type of race. So maybe worth a look-see there. Then one other was Escondido. I don't think this horse necessarily can win this race. I'm not sure he's fast enough, but I did like the last effort, and he seems to be one that's getting better, and now putting blinkers on I think might be the answer for him. And at 10-1, maybe one to think about if you're looking for a horse with value. The two Chad Browns in here, you know, of course, Chad Brown maidens at Saratoga. You want to take a second look, but honestly, I really didn't see that he's his usual earnest self about winning these maidens. The two jockeys. I don't know. These horses, both of them haven't run since 2 years old. It's been quite some time. And, well, Chad Brown has worked miracles with these horses on long layoffs. I couldn't find enough to get excited about either of them, really. So I decided to just kind of let them beat me. But This is one of those races I wouldn't talk you out of using one or the other or both of them, but it's a race that I think you certainly have to spread, and it was just it was hard it was hard to split hairs and separate them. So I went with what I thought were just the two most logical, and then for a price, Point Clear I think does look like a horse who can be a solid contender here. And then Frostel and Escondido for the price. Perhaps we'll think about him in crafting the tickets, but it's definitely a spread race and one I think that's a very competitive start and a very challenging start to the Grand Slam. One other note, you may notice there's two numbers by each horse. The parenthetic number, the one in parentheses, is their saddle blanket. The one in brackets is their post position, because we do have a couple entry in this race. Why Naira continues to use couple entries is beyond me, but we do. So consequently, the post positions are a little different, so I would take note of that. So really interesting maiden to start the sequence. We'll go with Point Clear, but there's a lot of ways to go in this one. Leg 2 is the ninth race. It's an optional claimer for $62,500 for non-winners of 3 lifetime, running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a pretty interesting race. There's not a true front runner in the race. I've upgraded Title Forces and Phileas Fogg as two who will likely try to get the lead in here, but there is plenty of early pace. Plenty of horses who like to be up near the lead, so it should be fairly contentious up front. The problem in this race to me is the closers really don't inspire a whole lot here. So taking a look at the field, Irish Aces is the logical favorite, having just run a pretty good race behind Ottoman Fleet in the stakes race, and certainly the class relief will help. The one thing I'm concerned about is coming off a career high speed number and running so big in that race, I do wonder if there'll be a regression to a degree. And on paper, certainly Irish Aces should win this race, but I think we have to take a look at some others in the event that happens. Taking Candy is the one that I like the most. This one has shown a steady progression since moving to the turf and is trained by Cherie DeVoe, and we know what she can do. I really like this horse. I think the progression is there, and at 10-1, you're getting some really nice value. Should be setting up right near the leaders, and we'll have a good tactical position heading into the stretch. Magical Ways is another one who I think has got a good progression since moving to the turf. This will be the third start on the turf, and saved ground all the way in the last race, but did close very well. And I think having an inside post position is likely to get a ground-saving trip again. We'll need another move forward, but I think that's logical. And at 12-1, Magical Ways, I think, is one that you have to consider as one. Maybe he's going to have a little bit of a jump on the closers, being more mid-pack. And like I said, any of the closers I really wasn't terribly excited about. So Magical Ways, I think, makes a lot of sense as well. Georgie W., I'm not quite as optimistic about, mainly for the top end. This horse did come off a career high and is appearing to progress and move forward. I'm just not sure this one will have quite enough to win, given the fact that he runs the same way as Irish Aces and Taking Candy, but I think is one that you can consider and certainly use in the mix. But going to go for a price here with Taking Candy. We're kind of banking on Irish Aces regresses a little bit, but certainly is one to consider in a race that doesn't lack a lot of late lick. It seems to be more on the front end, so that's where we're going to go in what is a pretty tough race for what's shaping up to be a pretty darn tough sequence. The third leg of the late pick 5 is the 10th race. It's the Diana Stakes, a grade 1, run at a mile and an eighth on the inner turf for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And as we expect in turf races at Saratoga, it's a Chad Brown Invitational. He's got 5 of the 10 horses in this field. So obviously we've got to find the other Chad Brown, as always seems to be the case. But this is a competitive field. It's a rematch of the Just a Game at a mile. And I think that eighth of a mile extra is significant. I'm going with Chili Flag. He is the favorite. She is rather. She continues to sparkle. It doesn't matter what the situation is, slow pace, fast pace, what the distance. She had slow pace in the Just Game, didn't matter at all. Closed with a flurry, and I'll fully expect her to run a big race again. Coming in third off the layoff, her late fractions continue to get better. I think the added ground and her form will take her over the top here. I like Chili Flag to win this one. Of the other Chad Browns, to me, White Beam is a horse that the added distance is going to favor as well. Also coming in third off the layoff and ran a nice second last time. Got nailed by Chili Flag, and there's no disgrace there. I think the added distance will help White Beam, and for that reason, I think is a very logical contender. Will be up near the pace setters. Likely to be heavy jets, I'm going to guess, but there isn't a true front runner in this race. But I think tactically White Beam will be in really good position. And should Chili Flag falter, I think White Beam will be right there. So that's those are the two Chad Browns of the five that I like. Nisi Marie is a horse who seems to be really found her stride on turf, seems to be getting progressively better. And again, this is another one coming in third off the layoff. Closed very well in her last race, and at 12-1, you're getting a good price. Where a lot of the more prominent horses in this race are vulnerable, and I'll just talk about a couple of them. Didia ran monster last time, and that's the problem. I think this horse is due for a letdown, particularly at a mile and a 3/16. She ran in last time, which is a little farther than she normally had gone, and it was just such a big effort. The last time she ran a figure comparable to this, she did have a regression, and I'm thinking that she's going to have another one here. So you can use Didia, but I'm going to leave her off. Coppice, kind of the same thing. Ran that huge effort off the bench coming in from Europe, and followed it up with an effort that if you watch her last race, Frankie Dettori didn't go to the whip at all on her. And I think the reason being is at the top of the stretch, he could just feel this horse didn't have it, so he did not press the issue. I expect Coppice will run a little better this time, but I think is still probably in that working her way back pattern from a really big race. So I'm going to go against Coppice on this one. Those to me are the two more prominent ones that I'm going to go against. The other Chad Browns, I haven't liked Gina Romantica's form at all this year. And Fluffy Socks, I just think is overmatched. It's the kind of race that she doesn't win. So I'm going to pass on her as well. Mission of Joy, Graham Motion's barn is going really well right now, but this is a horse that has been given a lot of chances, and I really thought in her last race was poised to take a move forward and just hasn't done it. And so I think you're basically looking at an underneath finish at best. So for me, there are some vulnerable, more prominent horses here. So with the exception of Chili Flag, but I think Chili Flag is the horse to beat, and followed by White Beam and hopefully Nisi Marie at a price to fatten up our pick 5. Leg 4 is the 11th race. It's the Sanford Stakes, run at 6 furlongs for 2-year-olds, and this is one of these famous Saratoga 2-year-old stakes races to give us an idea of who to be looking for on the Derby Trail, perhaps. We'll take a look at this field, and you see, no surprise, we've got a dominated by early runners for the most part, and we'll take a look at him. Minty is a pretty logical, I guess. 6-5 on the morning line to me is way too short for a horse who barely won his last race. Yes, he got off to an impressive lead, but he wasn't able to hold it, and that's really what troubles me about this one, particularly when he's going to be facing some significant pressure for the first time. Last race, he got right out to the lead, excuse me, and really didn't face any type of pressure whatsoever. I expect him to get more in this race. So at 6-5, really, that's the troubling thing to me more than anything else. I don't see where he has that clear-cut an advantage over any of the other horses in here. So I'm going to try to beat him. Baby Dukes, to me, just, is going to provide pace pressure, and I think that's the extent of it. I don't really see where there's an upside where this one can just take over this field. War Tax, I've heard a few people talking about this horse as one to watch, but going back into his last race, there was I had been some trouble had been alluded to, and that maybe he's got a lot more in him because he had some difficulty. Well, he did have some difficulty at the break a little bit, and that's to be expected for a 2-year-old. But coming into the stretch, I think he just tired, and I think maybe it was just a little too much for him. But I didn't see where this one's going to rebound, so I'm going to let him go as well. 15 to 1 is certainly a nice price, and if you want to throw him in for some value, I guess. But I really didn't see it. Moplex to me was awful professional in his debut. He drew off pretty handily, and he did it very professionally, and that's what I liked more than anything else. Was just the way he moved, and I think Jeremiah Englehart's got a good one here. So I like Moplex in this spot. Mr. Squeaky Wheels also won in his last start, and the figure came back a little light, but the Kevin Rice, as well as Adam Rice and Linda Rice, all the Rices at Saratoga are extremely dangerous, and I know Kevin and Adam Rice in particular come loaded for bear when they bring a horse into a race. So at 50 to 1, I think this is certainly one to watch for because I don't see necessarily where anyone can really blow this field away on the front end. And if that's the case, then maybe a horse coming from off the pace is one you want to think about. So Mr. Squeaky Wheels, I'll throw in the mix, particularly at the 15 to 1 price as maybe one to upset the apple cart. 3 Echoes is trained by Steve Asmussen, and of course you have to take him seriously at Saratoga. He always has a good crop of 2-year-olds, and he usually has them running at the Spa. I didn't really care for his last race. I thought, I wanted to see more from a horse, particularly going into a stakes race. He did duel down the stretch, but didn't have enough late, and so I'm not. The jury to me is still out on 3 Echoes, but given Steve Asmussen and the fact that he certainly knows how to work out the kinks in 2-year-olds, I'll throw him in the mix as well. Soon to be a king, I just don't think is good enough. That's really what it comes down to. And if I want a late runner, Studley Do Right is very intriguing, and the reason being is that when he was running in that race against Mentee, he took a while to engage, and I never thought he was going to get there, but all of a sudden it was like the light bulb went off in the stretch, and he just really got it together and damn near got Mentee at the wire. So with a move forward in a race where I'm not necessarily certain that anybody's going to dominate on the front end, maybe they cancel each other out, and then you've got Studley Do Right coming late. So I think he's very logical in this spot. To me, Moplex looks like the one to beat, but I do think you've got some good value in here, and I certainly think that this is a spread race, and I have to be against Mentee, particularly at 6 to 5. Here's what our ticket looks like for the Grand Slam. In the first race, the maiden, we're going to spread with 1, 2, 3, and 10. I decided to throw in the Chad Browns. It's a couple entry, 2 for the price of 1. Like I said, I didn't see either of them as being terribly exciting, but we do know Chad Brown can do well with horses coming in, particularly in maidens off a long layoff. So at the price, throw them in, Chad Brown, Saratoga, why not? So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and 10 there. Leg 2, we're going to spread as well, 4, 8, and 10 in the optional claimer. And I like Take Candy in that one. And leg 3 in Taking Candy rather. Leg 3 in the Diana. I think Chili Flag is the one chalk in here who looks pretty good to me. However, we're going to back that up with White Beam as well as Nisi Marie. They're all coming in third off the layoff, so to me, that's they all stand the best chance to take it down at a mile and an eighth, and hopefully we can get Nisi Marie home at 12-1 or better, and fatten up the sequence. And then finally in the Sanford, I'm throwing out Mentee. I just can't see that horse at 6-5 in a race that seems fairly evenly matched. Moplex to me looks like the most logical, but again, I think there's a lot of ways to go. And as we saw today in the Schuylerville, when you have these evenly matched 2-year-old races, a price can come out of nowhere. And I don't know if it's I can necessarily see it, but we got a couple options in there, and we do have some value to behold. So, excuse me, 4 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's a $108 ticket on a $1 base. And again, I think this is the kind of sequence that it's a pretty damn tough one. And the chalk is not really that firm in most of these races. So for the expenditure, hopefully we can get it home if the prices come out and we hit the right one. So I hope this analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. Wish you the best of luck as always. And let's take it down on the first Saturday at the Spa.